Welcome to GRE. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. How do you become the best in the world at anything that you want to do in your life? Today's remarkable guest will tell you how so you can become the best version of yourself. He's become the best in more than one endeavor, including playing in the NFL. We'll also learn about the persuasive power of story and how you can find your very best personal story that you do have inside of you. It's a show rated PG for personal growth, today on Get Rich Education.
Since 2014, the powerful Get Rich Education podcast has created more passive income for people than nearly any other show in the world. This show teaches you how to earn strong returns from passive real estate investing in the best markets without losing your time being a flipper or landlord. Show host Keith Weinhold writes for both Forbes and Rich Dad Advisors and delivers a new show every week. Since 2014, there's been millions of listener downloads in 188 world nations. He has A-list show guests include top-selling personal finance author Robert Kiyosaki. Get Rich Education can be heard on every podcast platform, plus it has its own dedicated Apple and Android listener phone apps. Build wealth on the go with the Get Rich Education podcast. Sign up now for the Get Rich Education podcast or visit GetRichEducation.com.
You're listening to the show that has created more financial freedom than nearly any show in the world. This is Get Rich Education.
Welcome to GRE, from Europe's Iberian Peninsula to New Iberia, Louisiana, and across 188 nations worldwide. I'm Keith Weinhold. As always, I'm grateful to have you along this week. This is Get Rich Education. Most investing is left-brained, but most decision-making for your investment choice is right-brained. If you don't know the difference, left-brained is about the numbers. It's analytical and logical. So left-brained people, they're good at math and critical thinking and language as well. If you're more right-brained, then you are more creative and emotional, and you tend to be good at recognizing faces and the attribute of diplomacy. That's right-brained, and it's a right-brained kind of episode today. You're going to learn how to be a performer and be the best at whatever you want to be. I mean, the best. Whether that's as a real estate investor, business person, apartment building syndicator, or a real estate agent that's trying to sell homes. It'll even help you become the best parent, child, best spouse, best at basketball, best at table tennis. And you are part of a really well-educated and influential audience that we have here. Maybe you're trying to be the best physician or politician or even social media influencer or the best church minister that you can be. And in fact, as it turns out, people that are trying to raise money end up consulting today's guest quite a bit. And as you'll see, this guest really can tell a story. You'll learn that he has achieved elite success, even best in the world success in a number of different areas. He's had like 3 or 4 successful people's lives, yet he's the same guy. He's sort of like, in a sense, President-elect Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, Trump found success in real estate, and then in media with his show The Apprentice, and then as the 45th and 47th president. Well, those disciplines there for Trump, they're somewhat related. Well, today's guest became the best in areas that aren't even related to each other at all, which is even more amazing. So therefore, maybe today it's really more of an Arnold Schwarzenegger parallel. I mean, Schwarzenegger, he was first a successful bodybuilder, winning Mr. Olympia. Then he went on to become a successful actor. He married into the Kennedy family, and he became the California governor. Well, before I introduce you to today's guest, well, we are a wealth building show here, and as we talk about being the best in something, I really want to ask you a question. Are you content with being middle class? Despite the way that inflation has ravaged it, U.S. middle class life isn't all that bad. In fact, it's pretty good in a lot of ways, from the iPhone to the luxury of having a gym membership. I mean, that's just middle class stuff. Sheesh, life is so good that when it's time to reset a password, people treat that as some sort of existential crisis. And, this is the time of year that even the middle class indulge in, say, pretty elaborate Christmas decorations. In fact, I increasingly notice that it's more and more common to hire a Christmas decorating contractor to decorate your real estate for you. They'll get ladders and a lift truck to hang lights in your tallest trees. That's something that the middle class does. Here's a new one. There's at least one mainstream, paper products company that now makes toilet paper with perforations that are wavy instead of being straight across, because it's easier to tear that way. So I think that you could make the case that American middle-class life really isn't too bad. But in your life, if you want to be all that you can be or anywhere close, you're not going to settle for something that's just better than not too bad. You can want more, and you should want more, because you're capable of more. If for nothing else, create the type of value for the world so that you can have more free time for yourself. I expect to have a terrific time and learn some things here where I am today in New Orleans for the 50th anniversary of the New Orleans Investment Conference. We've got speakers and exhibits covering real estate investing, economics, a lot of gold investing material at this conference, Bitcoin, and even stocks. And, of course, I invited you, the listener, here the past couple months to come to the conference and meet in real life. As this is about to kick off, I wonder if I will find someone to go running with me. I always go running along the Mississippi River here in New Orleans. There's a trail paralleling the river right here close to the event site. Yeah, I think I'm recovered from a mild back injury by now. Gosh, it was so weird. I hurt my back at the gym last month, and here's the thing, somehow I hurt it while doing my warm-up exercises of all things. Sheesh. In fact, this is a triumvirate of fitness paradoxes here in doing this. Number one, warm-ups are activities that you do before you work out to prevent hurting yourself, but I hurt myself in the warm-up. Secondly, I never seem to injure myself while running steep rocky trails or skiing down slopes outdoors, but indoors where the floor is level, that's the place where I seem to get injured. And then thirdly, the gym is where you go to improve your fitness, not lose fitness. So yes, that is the triumvirate of paradoxes there. Well, our guest, he really knows the power of story, and just listen to him. I bet he'll tell a better story than hurting my back at the gym. Let's meet him. Today we have a guy with massive ambitions who I know is going to bring out the best in you. During his lifetime, he's chased what it means to be world-class, not just in one discipline, but in 5 different disciplines, and he's achieved a true level of greatness in all of them. He has played in the NFL for 4 seasons with Houston, then went on to become a San Francisco 49er. Next, a super successful Broadway playwright, then an in-demand public speaker, most recently an 8-time best-selling author, and he has gone on to write screenplays for movie stars. So get ready to hear him talk about the one factor that's been the driving force behind his success in all of these disciplines. Hey, welcome to Get Rich Education, Bo Eason.
Keith, thanks for having me.
Well, it's the first time that we have a former NFL player on the show, and Bo played the same position that my favorite football player of all time did, Ryan Dawkins. That is the safety position. But we're not here to discuss football so much as how you can build the architecture of success like Bo has. And Bo, your success is astounding, and our listeners hope that some of their virtual proximity to you rubs off on them today. I do too. And it's remarkable because you've reached the pinnacle of success in some of these disciplines that don't even seem to be related to each other at all. So what can you reveal here? Is there one common driver that led to them all?
Man, you know what? That's a great question. going back, the way my dad woke us up as kids. So I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So I grew up on a ranch, on a farm in Northern California. My dad was a cattle rancher, and I have 4 older sisters and a brother who's a year older than me. So every morning he woke up all 6 of us to go do our chores, on this ranch at 5 a.m. And he would wake us up by rubbing our backs. He'd pull back the covers. He'd rub our backs really hard, like not easy, not like gentle, like dads of today. Like this was a cowboy, with dirty hands and rough hands. And he would rub our back and he would whisper in our ear and tell us that we were the best. And so for the first 18 years of my life, every morning he'd come into me and my brother's room. He'd wake up my brother in the same way he woke me up, by rubbing his back and whispering in his ear, "You're the best. Get up. You're the best." And after you hear that for 18 years, my brother went off to college. I went off to college. My sisters all went off to college. And I always think back to those first 18 years, because when I would come home and visit our parents, so my brother got drafted. He was the first round pick of the New England Patriots. He was the quarterback for the New England Patriots, took them to their first Super Bowl. So that best term worked out for him. And then I was a second round pick for the Houston Oilers and got to play with them for several years. And this term, I always thought back to it, like, why was my dad saying that? Because when we were growing up, when we were playing Little League and we were playing sports when we were kids, we actually weren't the best, but he wouldn't say that we were. Like, I would strike out every time in Little League. I was so bad at baseball. And every time he would yell at me through the chain link fence that I was the best. And my teammates were like, "You got to be kidding me, Bo. What is your dad even saying? You're the worst. And he's telling you you're the best." For most of our lives, the first half of our lives, it was a source of embarrassment to me and my brother. And I remember going on a date one time, a double date with my brother. In fact, I couldn't even drive. My brother could. And we went on this double date with the Tomasini sisters. So we were going, and my dad walks out to the car with us, and we're like, what the heck is what's dad doing? Why is he coming out to the car with us? He came out there to tell us that we were leaders and that we were the best before a date. And I'm like, Dad, go in the house. Right? And then finally, me and my brother, we weren't recruited as football players coming out of high school. Not one person, not one college recruited us. But we had these dreams of being pro football players. And at that time, 350 colleges played college football. But no one wrote us a letter. No one recruited us. So my brother went to a junior college. And then he ended up, after that, got a scholarship to the University of Illinois, and then became a first-round pick. Well, I went to a school called UC Davis in Northern California, which was Division II football and no scholarships. So basically, no one was on scholarship there. You just walked on and you played football for fun. Well, that's where I went. And then cut to 4 years later, my brother's a first-round pick. I'm a second-round pick. And we always looked back from that point on, deciding, like, Dad always embarrassed us. In front of our friends, in front of our dates, in front of everybody. But then at that point, 21, 22 years old, we looked back, we said, man, you know what? We just kind of surrendered to what he saw in us. And we were the best. We were the best at our positions. And the only reason we were is because we had somebody who saw our greatness and pretty much spoke it into existence. Now, when you grow up like that, Keith, you assume that every other kid has grown up like that too, right? But that wasn't true.
Right.
We thought it was true. It turns out that the other guys we were playing with, the other guys who were our teammates, they did not grow up like that. So I would say that principle was huge for me and my brother. Just somebody who saw something in us that we couldn't see for ourselves. And he did it up to a point where we began to see it for ourselves. He just was very patient. And, I find myself doing this with my kids. I have 3 kids and they're all going to be D1 athletes. 2 of them are already.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's because that's how I woke them up too. Like, so I know that's kind of a simple story, but it really set the foundation for us. And here's how it did, Keith. It told me what was expected of us, even when we weren't the best. He was expecting us to live into what he saw, and we did. And I found my kids to do the same. Like, I was looking at my kids and I was like, man, are they going to be athletes like me and my brother are at that level? Because that was their dreams, right? But I didn't know if they had what it took. As I woke them up every morning, I could see them starting to live into their potential or live into their birthright. So I think to start off with, Keith, that was a principle that is a mainstay. It taught me not only what was expected of me, but what I could set the standard for other people, and then they would live on into that standard. Been able to do that. So those couple of things were huge in my upbringing.
Well, this is remarkable, and I think you're already giving the parents in our audience quite a few ideas, Bo. This phrase, "you're the best," kind of got indelibly baked into your being and who you are. Your dad even chasing you around on a double date, reinforcing you're the best. And you know, Bo, I think that a person can be simultaneously grateful for what they have, yet at the same time strive for more. As I often say here on the show, and adopting an abundance mindset with wealth building, don't live below your means, grow your means.
Yeah.
Now, I was watching an NFL football game just this past weekend, and a commercial came on for the IBEW, the labor union. And, Bo, it struck me as so odd that a trainee at the IBEW smiled, and they were all gratified that they were part of the IBEW. And they said, this is like, now I have my golden ticket to the middle class. Which, I mean, I guess being middle class isn't like altogether awful in the United States, but it just sounded like this was the be all and end all. And hey, now I have a guarantee of mediocrity in my life. That struck me as so odd. I don't think their father was telling them you're the best like yours did.
No, they definitely did not. I'm always shook by that too, where people will sometimes come to me and they go, Bo, I want to push back on being the best. I just want to, be kind of a good player, kind of medium wealth. And I'm like, well, if you want to push back on me, you should take that up with Mother Nature. Because if you just go back to the day that we were conceived, if we want to have a little refresher course on the day we were conceived, we're going to find out that there was the odds of us even being born were 300 million to 1. And we were the champion of that first race that we entered, right? Like 300 million to 1 odds, you're the champion. And yet here we are, you and me, number one, the gold medalists of those odds. And now we're supposed to be born into a world and be mediocre. I don't think Mother Nature set it out like that. I don't think that's how it happened. I think the standard is the gold medal, not the silver medal. It's the gold medal. Now, some people win silver medals if they lose the gold. That's fine. That's great. But the gold medal is the thing. And I think the minute we lower ourselves from that, we're just trying to give ourselves a soft landing, I think. And then we don't ask enough of our potential, which is, if you're following Mother Nature, your potential is 300 million to 1 odds, and you already won that gold medal. So what are you doing? What are you doing? So as I progressed, Keith, so I went from football, I played in the league for 5 years, and I didn't know what I was going to do, right? So I just started again. I just said, so instead of being the best safety in the world, because that was my first declaration, I just said, I want to be the best safety in the world. That's it. So I was able to achieve that. And then when football was over, I did the same thing for playwriting and performing. I just said, I don't care. I know I don't have any experience in this, but I'm going to declare right now, and I'm going to draw it up, that I'm going to be the best stage performer of my time. So that principle has worked every time. But I had to use the term the best. And I don't know why. I guess it was just locked in my brain. But here's the next thing, the next principle that I think is important for the audience. And this goes for wealth building. This goes for whatever you want to build, whether it's your family or an apartment complex. It doesn't matter. We're building stuff. And here's what I did the second go around. I said, I want to be the best stage performer, the best playwright of my time. So I didn't know how to do that. So I moved to New York City because I knew everybody did plays there. They did Broadway, they did off-Broadway. And I asked everybody in my class, who's the best at this? This was in 1990. Who is the best at this stage performance? And every kid in my class, and they were kids, I was a little older because I was playing football. I said, where is the best stage performer of our time? Who is it? And they all said Al Pacino. And I said, cool, where is he? And they said, well, I don't know where he is. He's on a movie set somewhere or, rehearsing for a theater show. And I said, I want to know him. I want to meet him because only the best can tell me how to be the best. Only the best can tell me how to take his mantle of being the best stage performer.
Wow. Most people don't think that or say that.
You said Brian Dawkins. Me too. I'm like, who's the best safety in the world?
Yeah.
Let me go talk to that dude. Because that dude knows what, like Ronnie Lott was that for me. Jack Tatum, Ronnie Lott, those kind of guys. I ended up playing with Ronnie Lott. You end up playing with these guys, the guys you're looking up to. Well, within a week of me asking these kids in my class, where is Al Pacino? I'm having dinner with Al Pacino in New York City. And I go, dude, what do I do? What do I do? You tell me. I'll do it. And he goes, okay, Bo, I'll draw it up for you. We'll draw it up. You know what that's going to take? But that's going to take you 15 years. And I go, perfect. That's my kind of timeline. I'm good like that, And he goes, okay. So he drew it up and I did what he said. He told me who to work with. Basically, he's telling me to put my butt on a stage more than any other person can put their butt on a stage. So I go, I can control that. That I know how to control because that's what I did as far as training to be the best safety. I wasn't the best safety, but as the years went by, guess what? I passed up everybody who was ahead of me. You're the top safety in the league. Well, same thing for being on Broadway. He told me what to do. I did exactly what he told me to do. And 15 years later, I am opening a play in New York City that I wrote, that I'm the only guy in. And I swear I was so nervous before opening night to run out. And you look, Keith, I had played against the biggest, baddest dudes on the planet.
Yeah.
I wasn't as scared as going out on a stage to face those dudes. I would rather face Refrigerator Perry or Walter Payton than going out on a Broadway stage. And I went out, I'm starting the play. I am having an out-of-body experience because I'm the only one. I'm talking to the audience. The New York critics are in the house. Everybody's in there. And I make eye contact with a guy right on the row. He's sitting right on the aisle. It's Al Pacino. I hadn't seen him in 15 years. He told me what to do. I did what he said. He's in my play, a play I wrote, and I'm the only guy. Al Pacino, the best stage performer of our time, is sitting right there on the aisle.
That's so cool.
And he's nodding his head. He's like, yeah, dude, you did it. And so, you have to have a declaration. And that declaration has to be the best. So the declaration of being the best safety, being the best playwright, being the best stage performer, those things actually come true because you have a declaration, which you're living into existence instead of following some to-do list, right? I did the same thing for playwriting. I did the same thing with Al Pacino. And that career really set me off because I performed that play 17 years. One play, 17 years. It immediately gets bought by Castle Rock Pictures as a movie. Frank Darabont bought the play as a movie. And I don't know if you know who Frank Darabont is, but he's the guy who wrote and directed The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, Saving Private Ryan, Collateral. He's the guy who his TV show he created is The Walking Dead. So this dude was nominated for 12 Academy Awards for writing and directing. He bought my play to produce it for him. And so he hired me, who's never written a screenplay, to write the screenplay for him. This dude has been nominated for 12 Academy Awards for writing. And he hires me. I go, dude, don't hire me because I've never written a screenplay. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I'm not a great speller. In fact, I don't even have a computer. And he goes, I don't care about that. I think you can tell the story.
Yeah.
And I go, okay. So he was hiring me basically based on my guts or my heart. And we did that. So he bought that. I wrote the screenplay for him. Then Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire come to the play. They come running backstage. They say, Bo, we want you to write a movie for us. And I go, you know what, you guys, I don't write movies. They go, we pay a lot of money for our screenwriters. We think you can do it. And I go, yeah, based on that money, I think I can do it too. And so the crazy part about this whole thing is it all falls back to this ability to share myself, to tell a story that has physicality to it, that has heart to it. The ability to do that has really given me all these occupations. And then people came to me like business owners from Wall Street. They would come to the play like with their wife because their wife wanted to go to the theater and they were watching my play. Well, they would come backstage, Keith, and they would say, hey, man, I want you to bring this to my Fortune 500 company. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is a play. I don't take this to Fortune 500 companies. This play, you got to come to the theater. They go, no, we don't want to. I want our sales force. I want our leadership executives to learn to do what you do on stage. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Me and my wife were like going, I don't understand what you mean. They said, it's the funniest thing because typically when you're on Broadway, the people who come backstage to see you, they shake your hand or they get you autograph and they say, wow, you're a terrific performer or what great writing. That's what they usually say, right? Not my play. They come backstage and they don't say I'm great. This is what they say. Can you teach my people to do what you just did on stage? We're like, of course, because I was taught I could retrace my steps and I can teach business people, leaders, doesn't matter the business, coaches, whatever. I can teach them to express themselves in front of other people, which then makes them wealthy. Because in the end, I learned, Keith, that whoever tells the best story wins.
Yeah, I want to get to the power of story after the break. Before we do that, when one knows that the best, that word is out there for them, I think oftentimes they're stricken with fear. Fear is a great obstacle. How do you overcome the fear? From listening to you, it seems to me that your mechanism for coping with fear and becoming the best is facing it, getting in there and getting the reps.
Yeah, 100%. There's a great quote. The world was not created by great men. The world was created by a demanding situation where great men then rose. So we don't know our greatness until we're faced with a demanding situation. So if you're 9, you have no obstacles in your life. You're like, wow, this is really fun. I'm living on a farm. There's cows. There's horses. What a nice life. And then Bo created his own problem. He created a declaration that said, I want to be the best safety in the world. Well, right then, right when I got creative, now Bo's life became a demanding situation where I had to grow strong and I had to eat right. I had to exercise. I had to run faster than anybody else. So I created all these demanding situations for my life, but that's the only way to reveal character. No NFL team is drafting anybody who doesn't have a characteristic that makes you a successful NFL player. And the only way to get those characteristics is to lose, is to get your butt kicked, is to face your opposing players. That's putting yourself in a demanding situation. So us, as successful guys and successful gals, we kind of get satisfied. And so that we forget to keep putting ourselves in demanding situations. That's where the fear comes in. Because once you're in a demanding situation, you get scared. You're like, oh, do I have what it takes to do this? And then you discover by going forward that you actually do. You do have what it takes. And fear is like a made up thing. And you start to realize that you're the creator of your own fear. So look, when I wrote the play in New York, I had never written anything in my life. Like I said, I couldn't spell good. I didn't have a computer. But here's what I did have. I had the ability, because I already did this in my life. I knew how to put myself in a demanding situation and then take a step forward. I knew how to do that based on my football career. I knew it. So the principles of being the best safety in the world and being the best playwright in the world are the exact same principles. You have to have the declaration. It has to be at a standard that's way out of your comfort zone. That puts you in that demanding situation. Then you have to start running the miles. Then you have to hire an expert coach that sees you clearly and it is a critical thinker, like can see you and go, Bo, stop that, do that. Stop doing that and do that. Just like a nutritionist. Hey, I want to live longer. I want to be there for my daughters when they walk down the aisle. Okay, then you better stop eating this and start eating that. You have to have these experts in your life to fulfill on your birthright of being the best. So now you just break your life down. I just broke my life down like 5 different times because I'd enter a new era, like screenplays. How am I going to write a screenplay? I don't know how. I don't understand. But here's what I do know how to do. I know how to work. I know how to be the best. Those principles are pretty much the same as safety and playwright. So the guy who buys my play to hire me as a screenplay writer is the greatest screenwriter in Hollywood. So he's the guy paying me. He's the guy coaching me. He's the guy looking over my shoulder going, Bo, don't say that. Say this. Say less. Do this. Those are just first 3 principles we're talking about. The best. The standard has to be sky high. Otherwise, it's not going to be demanding. It's not going to require enough of your humanity to fulfill on yourself. So it's got to be there. Then you've got to take the time to run the miles to do this thing. And you cut your time in half or less than a half by having somebody who is an expert mentor or an expert coach, a guy like Al Pacino, a guy like Frank Darabont, who just goes, Bo, do this. Don't do that. A guy like Ronnie Lott, Bo, don't do that. Do this. And I just do what they say because guess what? They're the best in the world at what they do. You guys, those principles I found, I just keep repeating them over and over again. Now, a lot of you might be saying, Bo, that's a little much for me because I don't know Al Pacino or I don't know Ronnie Lott and I don't know Frank Darabont. You guys, I didn't know him either. But I do know this. The best in their field, whoever that is, say you want to be the wealthiest person on the planet. Well, the wealthiest person on the planet is more available than you think. Guess why? Because everyone thinks they're too busy and they don't ask of their time. You ask of their time. No one's asking of Al Pacino's time. Guess why? Because they don't want what he has. They want to be famous. I wasn't interested in fame. They want to get an agent in Hollywood. I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in what Al Pacino had, which was he was the best stage performer of his time. That they're willing to tell you because they know if you're asking that question, they want to be involved with you.
Right, because you dared to ask and they can probably perceive your ambition and people can sense that and they love that. And it sure can be scary to say, but fear should be your guide. You should follow your fear. We all know that that's where the growth is. It's like the gap in the gain. It's been said that the gap between where we are and where we want to be lies our greatest opportunity for growth. We're talking with former NFL player Bo Eason about being the best. We're going to come back and talk about the power of story next. I'm Keith Weinhold. You're listening to Get Rich Education. Oh, geez. The national average bank account pays less than 1% on your savings, so your bank is getting rich off of you. You've got to earn way more, or else you're losing your hard-earned cash to inflation. Let the liquidity fund help you put your money to work with minimum risk. Your cash generates up to a 10% return and compounds year in and year out instead of earning less than 1% in your bank account. The minimum investment is just $25,000. You keep getting paid until you decide you want your money back. Their decade-plus track record proves they've always paid their investors 100% in full and on time. And you know how I know? Because I'm an investor in this myself. Earn 10% like me and GRE listeners are. Text FAMILY to 66866 to learn about Freedom Family Investments Liquidity Fund on your journey to financial freedom through passive income. Text FAMILY to 66866. Hey, you can get your mortgage loans at the same place where I get mine, at Ridge Lending Group, NMLS 42056. They provided our listeners with more loans than any provider in the entire nation because they specialize in income properties. They help you build a long-term plan for growing your real estate empire with leverage. You can start your pre-qualification and chat with President Chaley Ridge personally. Start now while it's on your mind at ridgelendinggroup.com. That's ridgelendinggroup.com.
Hey everybody, this is Matt Bowles from Maverick Investor Group. You're listening to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. We're on a mindset journey today to help you level up, be a better person, and even be the best. We're talking with former NFL football player Bo Eason. And Bo, you're such a powerful storyteller, and I think it's a really important time to be a powerful storyteller. Trust in institutions seems to be at an all-time low, from the government to the media. This is partly why the rise of influencer culture has become a thing. So tell us about how a powerful personal story can build instant trust and connection in seconds, even when it seems like trust is at an all-time low.
It is at an all-time low. And that's what Gallup does, a poll every year on trust. The question they ask is, do you trust your neighbor? And it's at its lowest it's ever been. They started this in 1972, but it's down to single digits. This is your neighbor. Wow. This isn't somebody across the street. This isn't somebody in the next town or the next state, or the next country. This person you share a backyard fence with.
Right, like you're afraid to ask them to check for packages on your front porch when you're on a vacation or something.
Yeah, the trust is so low, but everybody gets depressed by the statistic. I get excited about it because there is one group of us that can restore trust. It is the storyteller. It's not just the storyteller, you guys. It's the person who can share themselves. Personal story, not just a story, although stories work, and they've always worked for thousands of years. But personal stories move the dial the most, give you the most trust, the most credibility. Personal stories, like if I say to you a sentence like this, when I was 9 years old, I had this dream, so I decided to draw up a 20-year plan to achieve my dream. If I tell you a sentence like that, you and me, even though it's a simple sentence, right? It's personal to me. Well, personal equals universal. Whenever you're telling a personal story, it affects your audience that much more because your audience locates themselves inside of your story. That is the science of storytelling, and that's why you earn trust by sharing yourself personally. Now, most people don't want to do that. They push back, especially business people, especially left-brain analytical type people. They say to me, Bo, I'm not going to share myself, because who cares about my story? And I say, everybody, you're just telling the wrong story. You have to tell it very personal and very specific to you. And it has to be a pain point. It has to be a low point in your life. That's where you start the story, because if you start at the top, there's no place to go with story. It's like, think of Rocky, everybody. Sylvester Stallone was a very smart guy. He was an unemployed actor, and he said, I'm going to employ myself for the rest of my life. Guess how? He plays the role of Rocky. He writes the role of Rocky. Who does he put in front of him? Apollo Creed, the greatest heavyweight champion in the world, a character named after a god. That's called great storytelling. He put Mount Everest in front of him. And if you notice, That's what he's always done. In every movie he writes, he's given himself a career because he puts himself at the base of Mount Everest every time. Well, that's where I want you to put yourself. What is your story? Where did you get rejected? It's always at a younger age. You know, Michael Jordan's story is the same as Tom Brady's story, is the same story that I have, which is we all were rejected in high school. We all were told we weren't good enough to play a high school sport. So what did we become? The best in our fields. That's what always happens. That's always the story of an elite athlete. So I want you guys sharing yourselves with these stories. And these stories are kind of the ones you kind of don't want to tell because they reveal certain things about you that are kind of humiliating. But humility is the best connective tissue that us human beings have. Isn't that weird? Embarrassment is a great connective tissue. Success isn't that connective. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I mean, embarrassment is self-deprecating. Most people like that, and everyone can relate to failing.
Yep. There's 3 rules I live by when it comes to storytelling. You guys know, number 1, it's got to be personal. It's got to be personal. The more personal, the richer you are. It's got to be personal, guys. I'll talk you into this if I haven't already. Number 2, you guys, if you're thinking about wealth, I would think about it in those terms right now. Secondly, it's got to be physical. Stories are physical, living things, living, breathing, human things. You can't tell a story like boring people tell stories. They, well, when I grew up, I was poor, and then I walked over to the store and they wouldn't let me have a candy bar. It's boring. It's stupid. It is not physical. You have to embody the story with your physicality. You have to become your story. You guys, I know this might sound crazy to you, but the more physical you are in your life, now listen to me, the more physical you are in your life, the more money you make. People don't trust what comes out of anybody else's mouth anymore. They don't trust it. They trust your body 100% of the time. I wish you could see my body right now because it is alive and you can probably feel it even though you can just hear my voice. You can hear the physicality of the resonance of my voice. Now, the more physical you are in your life, the richer you are. And that's across the board. I don't care if you're a ballet dancer. I don't care if you're a speaker. I don't care what your occupation is. If you are physical and unapologetic about your physicality, then you're going to make a lot of money. But if you're walking around on eggshells, people know it. If you're walking around apologizing for your masculinity or your femininity, and you're like, you know, you're just half-stepping everything, you see people like this all the time. What do you do with them? You dismiss them. But when somebody walks in and you turn your head, you know to look. You heard somebody come in behind you, you turn and look. Why? Because they have a presence and they're unapologetic. That is a learned trait, or I should say, it's a relearning human trait. I've been trained by the greatest movement coach in the world, you guys. The only reason I was trained by him, 17 years. I was trained by him because every time I saw somebody acknowledge when they won the Academy Award, an actor, they would acknowledge this guy. And I go, who the hell is this guy that everyone keeps acknowledging? Keeps thanking for their Academy Award for some performance. I want to know what this guy's doing. I want to know what he's doing with these performers. And he told me, right when I met him, he goes, no one has ever won an award for what they said. No one. It's what they did physically. That's how you win. And he's the guy who taught me. Well, so you guys, number 1, the story has got to be personal. Number 2, the story has got to be physical, unapologetic. It's so attractive when this happens. That's what I train people to do because that's what I was trained to do. And then when all these CEOs and stuff started coming to the play, that's what they wanted. Now, you guys, they didn't know to ask me that. They just said, can you teach my people to do what you do on stage? And I go, of course, because I was taught. The thing they wanted most was they wanted people to trust their salespeople or their leadership team. They wanted all their employees, including them, to be physical in the world because that is powerful. And you're going to watch this. You can watch this in elections. You can watch this in politicians. The reason they hide behind those podiums is their body betrays them. Their body betrays them. If I ever got hired to coach them, which I've always turned them down, I would put them out in the open like an animal so we can see their whole body, because that we can trust. But we don't trust somebody standing behind a podium. Very critical.
Well, there's a lot there. Yes, so much is conveyed through body language. People like decisiveness and commitment. You talk about how to make a story personal. When you had mentioned when you were 9 years old, you laid out a 20-year plan for your life. When you said that, me as a listener, that just makes me naturally want to lean in and ask a question about that and let you go on, for example. But when you talk about how stories need to be made personal, why don't we wrap up on how does storytelling work in business then? Say that a real estate investor is trying to attract co-investors to his apartment building deal, for example. How would you use story there?
Oh, yeah. Great question. So many of my clients are people that raise money, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. They are in the business of building a company. And so they're always asking for money. Well, there's a guy used to run a studio in Hollywood. I think it was Warner Brothers. And he did an experiment. He was building a studio. So he needed millions and millions of dollars. So he went to all his rich friends and he put a contract out in front of them. One contract only had numbers and percentages and columns written on it. Here's how much you'll invest. Here's how much you'll make after 5 years, all that stuff. The other contract was the same deal, no numbers, no monies, no percentages, only story. A story of belonging, a story of making a difference. He says 100% choose the story contract, not the numbers.
Purpose driven.
There's nothing to connect to.
Yeah.
I work in the finance world a lot, you guys. People, high wealth, they always want to talk about numbers. And I'm like, rich people are all right brain. You know that. So every billionaire, every millionaire in the world is right brain, not left brain. They're right brain. But the people managing their money or raising their money are left brain. So they want to talk about numbers. And I'm saying, you guys, you can't talk about numbers because rich people don't know what you're talking about. Rich people want to belong. They want to see themselves inside the business that you're building. So you better have a hell of a story. And the best story wins. No matter what, best story wins. If you and me are both building a skyscraper in New York City, if I got a better story than you, guess what skyscraper is going to get built? Mine. That has nothing to do with money, because money's everywhere. Money's like air. It's more abundant than air and water. There's money everywhere. But what are rich people attracted to? Story. Why do you think they call it show business? Show. I'm the show. You're the show. You're the storyteller. The business people bring the money to the show. So rich people don't know how to make movies. They don't know how to tell stories, but they want to give you the money so that you can tell yours. Of course, that's how this thing works. That's why show and business always go together. There's a great saying, rich men, when they sit down to dinner, they speak of art. When artists sit down to dinner, they speak of money. Artists sit down to dinner, they speak of money. When finance people sit down to dinner, they speak of art. So they're completing one another.
Yeah.
You've got to be an artist. You've got to be able to tell your story, because their dreams and their big bank accounts relying on your vision of what you're going to build. That makes you an artist. That makes you, here, go build what you got to build. Here, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I've never heard that before. That's remarkable. In using story to connect with others, something that seems to be fleeting and so badly needed for connectivity today. Well, Bo, this has been great, talking about the best, talking about the power of story. You do so many things to help people in their own growth journey and to expand their own mindset. Tell us about your resource for that.
You know what? Because the first thing that when I say, look, you got to find your personal story, most people go, I don't have one. Well, that's just not true. Everybody has a story. I've worked with thousands of people and everyone's got a great dramatic story. They just don't know it. So I'll send you a free story guide. It's a video course. It's going to give you some prompts and we're going to find your powerful personal signature story so that you can begin to use it today. So all you got to do is text me. So text personal story, the word personal story, one word, personal story, text that to this number, 323-310-5504. That's text personal story, one word, personal story to 323-310-5504. Text me that and I will automatically send you a story guide to start to uncover this thing. You'll start to realize, wow, I do have a cool story that I can begin to tell whether I'm in the Oval Office or whether I'm in front of 1,500 people in a speech. You can open with your personal story. It works and it attracts people to you. If I was in your guys' shoes, you're interested in building wealth. Me too. If I'm building wealth, guess what I'm beginning with? Personal story. And then I just get to go right to the top because people are only interested in other people who have a vision bigger than the people have for themselves. And that's you. That's you in your personal story. You have a vision that is bigger than the people have for themselves. If you can do that, guess what? People got to buy into that. They got to invest in that. They got to be around that. They got to marry that.
Oh, you're so right. I really think this is going to help a lot of our listeners. You, the listener, you probably have several good stories inside you, and Bo can really help bring them out. You'll have the benefit of seeing him on video. He's a really powerful speaker. I've had that same benefit of seeing him on video. You've only listened to him so far. Check out his resource if you think you can benefit from it. Bo, Eason, it's surely been valuable. Thanks so much for coming on to the show.
Keith, thanks for having me.
Oh, such sharp insights from a motivating guy, Bo Eason, this week. And hey, if you have kids, are you going to wake them up by hard rubbing their back in the morning and telling them you're the best? Well, it seemed to work. For a little review about what you learned, Bo talked about how the standard is the gold medal, not the end goal, but that the gold medal is actually the standard. That's his mindset. So Bo made sure he met Al Pacino when they got dinner. He found out that Pacino was the best, so he sought out the best and made sure to get around him. And a lot of people are scared to do that or even ask about the best. And you know, I just can't help but think that that's like my life experience with women. In high school, I was just so shy and deathly afraid to ask anyone out. But in college and beyond, you know, sometimes I would ask out the most attractive woman, and they would usually say no. But, you know, I can't believe some of them actually would say yes. And see, the more that you do this, the more confident you get. And women like confidence and can feel that coming from you. And then, so therefore, your fear dissipates and it becomes easier to overcome. You have a unique fingerprint in this world, and you yourself, you do have an interesting story. I just know that you have it in you, but the chances are you've never even told your highest and best story to one other human being on this earth. Not even once, and perhaps I haven't either. Bo said that stories need to be personal, physical, and unapologetic. And his video course helps you find your personal story. And if you didn't catch that, again, you can get it by texting one word, personal story, to 323-310-5504. Coming up in future weeks here on the show, it's probably, more left-brain strategic real estate investing content than right-brained emotional content like today's show. But one right-brain topic coming up on the show that I want to share with you, I want to tell you why, as a society, we hate Amazon founder Jeff Bezos because he's wealthy. But yet society does not dislike wealthy singers like Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift, and Dua Lipa. We love them, even though they're wealthy. We don't resent an actor like Robert Downey Jr. for making $600 million as an actor in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So it's all about why we vilify successful entrepreneurs for their wealth, including landlords, yet somehow we glorify successful actors, athletes, and entertainers for being wealthy. It's a case study that I've been working on. I shared some of it with our newsletter readers last week, and I'll have more on that here on the show. Signing off from the Grand New Orleans Investment Conference, the nation's longest-running investing conference, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Don't quit your daydream.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.